My friends, AEW All Out 2025 is in the books. I am back in my Canadian hotel room. And yes, I was at the show live. So you're probably now saying to yourself, Simon, why didn't you do a live ups and downs? Well, because of the WWE show and AEW had to move their show. I was working the Smash Wrestling show, which was meant to happen before the pay-per-view. Then it happened after the pay-per-view. But thank you to everyone that did come out and say hello. I had a very good time. And what a wonderful day I did have. I watched some live wrestling. I did some wrestling myself. It is now 3:02 in the morning, all the way around, 3:02 a.m. in the morning, but I am still going to give you my thoughts when it comes to AEW All Out. Let's give the good bits an up, the bad bits a down. Now, if you were of Canadian faithful, you probably loved the start of this pay-per-view because it was Edge and Christian, excuse me, every time, Adam Copeland and Christian, walking around as they essentially met the Trailer Park Boys, which I thought was terrific. It also meant it was them versus FTR in the opening encounter, and man, I don't know what it was about this match. Maybe it was because Adam Copeland and Christian Cage were back together in Toronto, and because Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler are so damn good. When I sat down there, I crossed my arms, I felt the atmosphere, and I just decided I am having a flipping good time. Also, because we'd had the match against Luchasaurus and Kip Sabian a few weeks ago as well, it kind of felt like to me that Edge and Christian, which I'm just going to call them because I keep making a mistake, were doing more double team moves and their partnership was a little bit better. Like we're still waiting for the big old hug. But I suppose the big thing we should talk about here is when Beth Phoenix came down to the ring. I presume she's still called Beth Phoenix, just came up with Beth in the arena because Stokely Hathaway was being a goober and putting the referee out the ring to stop the 1, 2, 3, and she absolutely walloped him. And of course, the true genius of this is Beth Phoenix came out in her wrestling gear. She was in her full wrestling attire, meaning she was backstage going, I tell you, even though I've never debuted on this show, if anything goes down, I'll have to save my husband. I'm going to give it an up. She got a great pop. I would imagine that she does have a match against somebody, and why the flub not? And actually, it could tie into what happened after the fact. At 1.2, it was Copeland doing the Unprettier, and it was Christian giving the spear, which I like, so we reversed it. And yes, I get it. The finish was a little bit weird, because I think Adam Copeland got hit with a spike pile driver, he got hit with a shat machine, and he was whacked in the head with the ring bell, but he just kept kicking out. Before he hit the spear from nowhere on Cash, and Christian was on the outside holding Dax's leg so he couldn't get in, and they got the 1, 2, 3. So I get it. Edge came across as like Super Cena or some kind of superhero here. But in the building, I didn't mind it. And actually, it just said to me, you know what? Maybe a lot of heels are going to win on this show, so let's give the babyfaces one big win. What I've realized is I just love Cope and Christian. Like a lot, man. I am a CNC dude. Now afterwards, we got a really big angle as well because Nick Wayne came out in a wheelchair pushed by Mother Wayne. And this is when all of a sudden in the ring, FTR went totally crazy and they handcuffed Adam Copeland to the ropes. Kip Sabian also was involved here, so he went after Christian. And yes, when Beth Phoenix tried to save her man, FTR took over and they gave her a spike pile driver while Adam just had to watch on. And when you do take a step back and you think about this, that is totally flubbed up. Of course, it does mean the feud can continue, though. And I get it, it's kind of backwards for pro wrestling, because usually the bad guys will win, and the good guys will win, and then you do a blow-off, but you don't want the same thing every single time. And we probably could nitpick this. There is something I will nitpick in just a little bit, but there was just something about it. I've said that twice now, but I just had such a good time. I thought it was a great opener. I love seeing these four together. I'm giving it an up, and also fair play to Beth. She totally sold it. But of course, the whole time I was going, wait a minute, why isn't Luchasaurus / Kill Switch here? And we will find out about that later, but we'll hold that one off. I also totally forgot to mention as well that at one point during this, Adam Copeland did the 5-knuckle shuffle and he did the 8A as a nod to John Cena, after, of course, John Cena had done the same for him on an episode of SmackDown. Some people actually got mad about this, and you know what? You're allowed to do whatever the flub you want. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Another reason I just love this flipping match. The next match was super interesting as well because it was Eddie Kingston versus Big Bill. So let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne. I am giving Eddie Kingston an up just for being back. I mean, he's just such a genuine guy. You can't help but love him. When it comes to the match, well, listen, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It wasn't the best thing in the world. You're probably not going to write home about it. And maybe we should have done sort of Dynamite or a Collision. But at the same time, it's Eddie Kingston, man. He's a super duper whooper star. And there's not much else to say about it either. I mean, Bill just whooped this guy's ass and sort of Kingston kept coming back with chops like he was in All Japan. But yes, we do have to talk about the finish. Now, I've not seen this back on television, so I could completely wrong. But Eddie Kingston went for his spinning back fist. and from my vantage point, he totally missed. Now, somebody told me that the commentators mentioned this too, but they still went for the finish, I suppose because they were on pay-per-view and that rhymes, so it must be true. That's a double rhyme. It's so difficult for me. Like I say, Eddie Kingston, he gets an up. Him being back in AEW was a massive plus, especially because they lost Will Ospreay, they lost Swerve Strickland. But if I am right, and the information that was given to me, you do have to give that a down. Now listen, it's not a big deal. Mistakes happen. We all make errors. We are but human beings. But if we are being critical, at least constructively, about a wrestling show, well, maybe he should have just picked him up and hit him again. But he's still finding his feet. He's still getting rid of the ring rust. But yes, it's an up for just him in general. And it's a down for that. Although I really like Big Bill. He has come of age. And we should probably do more with him. And we got some aftermath here as well, which is very surprising because the lights did come out, and it was Hook who came down to make the save after Brian Keith had helped his tag team partner beat Eddie Kingston up. And don't forget, this does tie into Dynamite because Hook said, maybe I'm alone and maybe I'm not alone. But I do have to say, a lot of people sat around me, thought this was Chris Jericho. They were totally wrong. It doesn't mean we can do the tag team though, although Hook and Eddie and Christian are very, very strange. Although again, if you do want Hook to continue to climb up the ranks, you should give him this experience. So I was totally fine with it. Also, I was giggling. I was like, wait a minute, that's kind of like a surprise. And then we had Beth Phoenix as a surprise. So if we keep on doing this, well, we're probably going to have a lot of mad people on the internet. When we got to Mark Briscoe versus MJF in a tables and tax brawl, whatever the flub you want to call it. And again, the best thing about this is MJF bailed to begin with. So what did Mark Briscoe do? He got 1 bucket, he got 2 bucket, he got 3 bucket 4. All of them were filled with pins, and he just poured them all over the floor. And essentially then, these two guys took their time, took the time, big bump into the tax. They took their time, they took their time, big bump into the tax. Early on, it was just Mark Briscoe going into the pins. So you could be like, oh my gosh, our poor babyface. Before eventually MJF got exposed, he got thrown into the tax, and everybody made a noise. Now, as we know, AEW pay-per-views do tend to go a little bit long, and that's why I thought this was so damn great. It felt completely different from everything else on the show, and the pace the thing was perfect. It was like, you should probably have an impact of what you have just seen. It was a bit disgusting, so embrace that, swallow it. Oh, here's another one. I also want to shout out the kid behind me that was absolutely hilarious, who continued to shout, oh, MJF, you suck so much. Mark Briscoe, why don't you throw him through a table? That's what wrestling is there for, man. I imagine most of us got into it when we were a child. This kid, he just hated Maxwell Jacob Friedman so much. We also saw MJF do things like drag Mark Briscoe through the tax and throw some in his mouth and some in the eye. At one point, I was like, man, Mark is really getting his ass kicked here, but surely he has to win, because if you go through this feud, I mean, you could argue the peak of it is when MJF tried to kill him with gasoline. If you don't get revenge then, I mean, when are you going to? We also had tables here, of course, and Mark Briscoe hit a froggy bow and he was doing crazy jumps over the top rope using the chair, when essentially he did stand on the top rope and he hit a sort of froggy bow through a table into the tax when he was like, well, I tried the J Driller earlier, I'll try it again. He hit the J Driller into tax. At this point, Mark Briscoe had flipping pins in the back of his head, which was absolutely horrible, and he pinned MJF. I mean, I would say pretty clean in the middle of the ring for the 1, 2, 3. But at the same time, he had used a lot of weapons, although they were totally legal. It was totally the right thing to do, though, although I am intrigued what we do with Mark Briscoe next. Because later on in the show, he was so damn pumped, he was like, I'm going to bring Orange Cassidy back, and we're going to have a 6-man tag, although he did not say Orange's name. But I think you kind of need him to move him into a TNT title position, or maybe even give him a world championship match against Hangman on TV. I understand they're babyface, but why the flub not? But again, this thing really stood out. I thought it was well approached, and whoever came up with the idea to get some kind of a medal, I'm giving it an up. If you are going to watch it, remember, AEW does not hold back with their stipulations. When it was Ricochet in the Gates of Agony taking on the Hurt Syndicate, and I suppose if we were going to shout out anybody during this match, it would be MVP. Not only was he involved in a lot of the spots to remind you, oh, hi, I know what I'm doing, but he got his ass whipped too. And ultimately, he got pinned. Dun, dun, dun. Everybody in this totally shone, though. I mean, you had Bobby Lashley running through people. Shelton Benjamin just continues to prove he is one of the most underrated talents of our generation. And the Gates of Agony, my gosh, have they grabbed onto this opportunity and they're just riding it to the rafters. And Ricochet, as far as I'm concerned, does not get the credit he does deserve. At one point, he did a 450 springboard to break up a pin. I was quite close to the ring because I could see it, and he did it so damn effortlessly. My bald king. Gates of Agony also made sure to work over MVP's leg, which was going to tie into the finish. And the reason Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin weren't around to save him is because the Gates had absolutely destroyed them at ringside and threw them over Barry Barricade. Speaking about Barry, he was totally assaulted on this evening, and I was right there shouting at someone, please, would you help him? And did anybody do anything? Nobody did shit. Ricochet also did the corner dive after that, which was absolutely incredible. But this is when MVP found himself isolated. Everybody took a shot. When Leona held him, who also looked good, Leona looked fantastic here, Ricochet ran in with the Spirit Gun and he pinned MVP for the 1-2-3. Now, we talked about this on Dynamite Ups and Downs. Even though MVP had totally murked Ricochet, well, it's kind of null and void now because Ricochet did get the win. If you want to do that singles match, you probably could. So I thought this was really smart because, again, if Ricochet is going to start a new group and then they lose their first big match, they would look like goobers, but they didn't. And ultimately, this was just big men slapping man meat. You do not realize how large these men are until you are this close to the ring. It's kind of hilarious, and it made me want to go to the gym. It's a very sad thing to say, but I've said it now. I am going to give it an up. I just thought it was a bunch of fun. And sure, maybe it's not one of those matches that's going to last long in the memory, but in terms of watching it, having a good time, damn right. Which is kind of the same for Mercedes Moné versus Riho. I mean, the good thing here is that Riho looks like she has got Ring of the Ring rust, but I suppose the major issue when it came to this one is nobody believed the TNT title was going to change hands, and that was the same in the main event later. So I am just going to give that a little bit of a down. You may have noticed this on TV, I do not know, I've not checked out the statistics, but the crowd did kind of dip here and there, and I really do think it came down to the fact they were like, well, we know the winner, so we'll just wait till the finish. It's getting a mini down. They did it really good together, and at one point Riho was just stomping on Mercedes from any which way possible. But some of the moves, some of the transitions, some of the reversals, and some of the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment surprise roll-ups they got into, well, they just work so incredibly well together. And of course, it's old school wrestling. Mercedes is quite clearly the bad guy. Riho is quite clearly the good guy. Just let them fight. He actually tried to protect Riho a little bit here as well, because Mercedes basically used the referee as a bit of a shield. When she hit this, I don't even know what you call it, basically threw Riho up in the air and destroyed her lungs. When she hit the Mone maker, I've forgotten because it's been a while, and she's got the 1-2-3. And I'll be honest with you, when she got Riho into that position, I was like, oh no, don't do that move. Sometimes it doesn't look very good or it doesn't hit right. But this one, I suppose because Riho is so small, my gosh, she killed her. So it was a good match. It was a solid match. It was a fun match, and it just lacked the fact that you never thought a title change was coming. But I do love the fact that Mercedes Moné is just going through every single pay character she can and having a match with them. I mean, she doesn't need to do that, but she's here, there, and everywhere. I am going to give it an up, but it's another one. Sure, if you wanted to skip it, I kind of understand. But actually, there's a lot of good in there too, and hopefully Riho can stay on TV. So it's very, very good. When we arguably got to the match of the evening, it was Okada taking on Takeshita, taking on Máscara Dorada for the unified title. I'm just going to do one of those things where I tell you to go and watch it. Now, I understand the criticism is people go, oh, nobody sold during this match, which is not true. But ultimately, it's the fact they go move, 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 and do a bunch of wrestling tennis, and they move at such a ferocious speed. But why would anybody want to take this away from wrestling? I wouldn't want to watch it all the time, but I wouldn't want to watch any other style all of the time either. I want an eclectic mix, and they were so damn good. And they came up with so many good ideas. And even though Okada won and is probably going into a feud with Takeshita, Máscara Dorada just comes across, that was not his name, that was gibberish, but he just came across as an absolute legend, and by the end, I actually think a lot of people wanted him to win. But at one point, Okada and Takeshita were just going, I'm going to hit you with a tombstone. No, I'm going to hit you with a bastard driver. And they just kept reversing all over the place. And all of a sudden, Dorada did jump off the top rope and do a double moonsault. And from there, I mean, I can't even explain it to you. They basically break the laws of physics. I don't actually know how they did a lot of what they did. There was also this insane double suplex spot where Máscara Dorada looked like he was about to hit the roof. And the DDT on the ring apron as well. I mean, Okada got totally murked. Takeshita kind of used that as well because he did hit the Raging Fire onto Dorada, and of course that's when Okada returned, and he remembered a good old WWE finish, and he just smashed some Rainmakers out before he did pin Dorada. And even though Takeshita and Okada looked at each other at the end of this, the story is very clear. Takeshita can be a bit like, yeah, I had that match won, and you just got rid of me, Don Callis, family member, friend of mine. I can't remember what the next pay-per-view is, or at least the next two. But by the end of the year, these two guys should be knee-deep in a program, and Takeshita should win that title. Like, I wouldn't say necessarily it's going going to be better when it is one-on-one, but even when these two are doing interactions, it was incredible. Genuinely one of the best matches I've seen in ages. It doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up. It was truly tremendous, and I understand it may not be your cup of tea, but you can always go out and get a coffee instead. I thought it was flipping phenomenal. It was also very funny as well because our next match then came and it was Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in a coffin match. And I thought that Tony Khan was very clever here because given how long this pay-per-view was going to go, if you wanted to make sure the following bout was nothing like the previous one, this was the way to do it. I mean, a lot of it was absolutely horrific, including when Darby Allin got some kind of a tool, I don't know what it was, and after biting Jon Moxley's ear, which I think he did legitimately, he was sticking it in the damn Mad-Made hole. Now listen, I understand this is revenge for Forbidden Door and what Mox did, but I was still watching it, thinking to myself, I don't understand how we've got here, and we are not in Kansas anymore, Toto. At one point, two of the Death Riders arrived to help put the coffin in the ring, and then they just left again, which was very strange, but we continue to tease that Darby's going to win, Darby's going to win, Darby's going to win. I mean, even during Jon Moxley's entrance, he made sure he cut him off. We dived off a balcony in around about 5 seconds, just put a 7 on the dive counter, to be honest. There were so damn many of them. When we actually got a big surprise return. Now, once again, I want to nod my fake cap to Tony Khan, because it was Beth Phoenix, I guess you could call Hook one of these, and a bunch of other people just kept returning. We'll get to 2 more later as well. And so when Pac turned up, well, I'm going to be honest with you, first I didn't know who he was, because he's cut his hair, and I've never seen Pac with cut hair. It took me about 12 seconds, then I turned to the person next to me and I said, "Oh, it's Pac." He looked at me like, "Yes, Simon, I know, it's been a while." And the interesting part when Pac turned up is that we did find out, I presume, what Bryan Danielson whispered to Allin on Dynamite, because he actually gave him the bag, or at least instructed him to use the bag in the same way that Bryan Danielson had been choked out by the Death Riders. So not only was Darby Allin trying to commit murder, put one on the crime counter, but the fans actually started to chant, "This is murder." I really took that in. It was nothing to do with me, but I was like, you know what? These are my kind of people. When clearly Pac was like, well, I have been around for a while. I should probably save my leader from being killed. He threw Darby into the coffin. Moxie was there. He slammed it shut. And even though Darby Allin lost, he didn't really. I mean, again, he was about to murder a dude when an old face just happened to turn up. And like we said earlier, this is just sticking to the traditional feud as well. Now, of course, Darby can get some friends. You can do some kind of 6-man tag. And at the next pay-per-view, Darby should be the guy to beat Moxley. And it's hard for me to review this because by this stage, we all know that AEW, when it comes to stipulations, are going to be a bit flubbed up and they're going to be a bit awful. And also in real life, if I was Darby Allin and somebody had done that to my ear and then I had the legal right to do it back to them, maybe I would. But I would absolutely approach this with caution because it does get sick, or for the sickos, as people will say. But I am going to give it an up. I love the return of Pac. I love the fact that Bryan Danielson has transitioned to a commentator, but he still wants revenge. He's like reverse Batman. And ultimately, it did exactly what it said on the tin. Could do without all that ear stuff. But at the same time, I want AEW to push the envelope. Otherwise, why bother to exist if you're not going to take those risks? I'm going to give it an up because, look, for the 20 minutes or so it ran, I was completely hooked. I couldn't take my eyes off it. When we got to the 4-way for the Women's Championship, and it was Thekla versus Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter versus Kris Statlander, and this was a very interesting match, because in terms of the body of work, once again, I thought it was fine, I thought it was decent, all 4 of them are very talented, but for whatever reason, maybe I myself was tired, I did get 1 hour's sleep last night, I couldn't massively get up for it, and again, for large portions of this, the fans were very, very quiet. I think they were a bit worn out too. It's why we jump right to the finish though, because there are 2 things I want to talk about. First of all, not only did Kris Statlander pin Toni Storm with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the prize roll-up to win the championship, but she beat the champion. There were 2 other people she could have done, but at the time, Thekla and Jamie Hayter were just punching each other on the outside. But look at the move that Kris won. I know I called it the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, but it was essentially Wheeler Yuta's seatbelt pin, whatever the flub he calls it, and who was out at the start of this guy? Hello, Kris Statlander. I've got some ideas for you. If you didn't say Wheeler Yuta, you haven't been listening. You also could have said Cousin It. So that kind of changed the whole trajectory of this match, because afterwards I was like, what a smart decision. Like, you could be a massive nerd here, and I was a little bit, I thought about it and go, well, they didn't really build to this. But I actually think that makes all the sense in the world, because now, the next time you watch a match where you do think there's no jeopardy, this will make you go, oh, wow, man, maybe I'm totally wrong. And again, she pinned the champion here. So I actually like the fact that we did do it. And wrestling, if we do believe it as we see it on the television, is meant to be a sport. And you know what happens in real life sport? sometimes an underdog or sometimes a champion does drop the ball and everything changes in the blink of an eye. If you're also talking about people that deserve it, Kris Statlander was essentially an AEW OG. She landed on this planet as an alien, and now she has become a champ, and the fans love this, even though, of course, they love Toni Storm. And Toni sold this like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. I am massively intrigued to see what's next. You could even do the world title program between Willow and Kris, so I do have to give it an up. When that 1, 2, 3 hit, I jumped out of my chair because I could not believe it. Just to repeat myself, I appreciate the fact that AEW took a risk. We get 52 weeks of television a year. There's no reason not to. Bravo. And then, yes, we get to the 4-way ladder match. Where it was Brodido, it was the Young Bucks, it was Hechicero and Josh Alexander, and it was JetSpeed. You just got to go and watch it. I can't do it justice. They were crashing through tables, they were jumping off chairs, they were doing all kinds of things. They were using ladders as well. Do I want to do this? I do want to do it a little bit. I am going to give it a down just because there was an overuse of tables on this show. What a geeky thing to say, but by the time we were using it in the main event, I did think they'd lost their luster a little bit, but it's totally unfair, and this was absolutely nuts. Like some of the stuff Brody King was doing, it's like, man, you're so damn large. And the Bandido moonsault off the top rope, I think it was just Josh Alexander down there, but I don't know. And at one point, Kevin Knight was on the ladder, and everybody picked him up and threw him through a table on the outside. And when you see that bump up close and personal, the man fell miles. And maybe exaggerating. Some of the things they constructed at ringside as well were absolutely perplexing. And these Young Bucks, man, not only do they make every single thing they do look effortless, but they just understand how to put a tag team match together. And listen, the fans were quite behind them here. And I think it comes down to the fact they are so entertaining. So you can walk in my house or hotel room and you know what I'm going to tell you? They're one of the best teams ever. Poor Mike Bailey as well got pile driven through this ladder that looked absolutely horrendous, and Bandido himself was going absolutely crazy. I really think even if you were the biggest Bandido hater a few months ago, which would have been weird to begin with, after you've seen what he has done in 2025, you have to be won over by this man. Him and Brody King together are excellent, and yes, after it went, you're murked, you're murked, you're murked, you're murked, because people were jumping off the top rope and crushing people through tables, which is when we got that moonsault madness as well. Brodido did climb up there. They did retain their tag team championships. Now AEW really has doubled down on them being a duo, and I actually think it was the right call to make. So I have to give that an up from effort alone. I mean, they were putting their lives on the line here, and some people roll their eyes at that, but you just don't get it. When we got kind of a strange angle afterwards. Now for starters, we got another return, as we hinted at earlier, because it was Jack Perry who confronted the Young Bucks, I suppose, after those BTE skits, and he double-legged them and he wanted to beat them up. Of course, he was never going to do this because of the numbers game. I may have got this wrong because, again, I was there live and, I was trying to take everything in, but things sort of passed you by. We saw Jack Perry in the jungle and he dug up a body, I think, and then he took said body to some sort of hospital or local medical facility. He woke this body up, and it was Luchasaurus. Now I was like, wait a minute, we saw Luchasaurus recently on AEW TV because of course he got thrown into the Kip Sabian angle. And while I understand that was because Nick Wayne brought his foot, this almost felt like it was going to be the plan. And even other plans to change the original plan, we still did it. And listen, Luchasaurus came out to save Jungle Boy. So now the Jungle Express are back together, or the Jurassic Express. Jungle Express is much better. And the fans loved this. But I was like, what? Luchasaurus is back, but he was back already. Maybe I missed something. I don't know. I am pretty stupid. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a down, and again, I'll expunge that from the record. If I have made a mistake, this is the issue with going to watch a show and then continue to review it at 2:30 a.m. in the morning and probably waking up my hotel patrons. But this ladder match is well worthy of your time, and also, if you do want to feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum, of course you want to see Jack Perry and Luchasaurus back together. I think it helps Luchasaurus, who does need a babyface direction, and as much as I respect the fact that Jack Perry tried to play heel, given the lay of the land and given the state of the world and given where AEW is at the moment, I think going back to the most successful variation of his character, but I think it's actually going to help him quite a lot. Also, once again, fair play, Tony Khan. He gave you about 42 returns. This is where we got a Jon Moxley promo as well, and Darby Allin was still in the coffin. I couldn't stop laughing. He's just been trapped in there for 2 hours. Maybe he was dead, but nobody cared. And when Moxley said, listen, Death Riders, you drive away in the truck, have a guess what happened. Darby Allin was a zombie. He popped out of that casket and he wrapped Jon Moxley in a body bag, just put 5 on the crime counter because he set it on fire. This looked like real fire to me. So I suppose Jon Moxley is dead. Also cracked me up as well because this is how we're going to get to the next feud, right? Jon Moxley's going to have to go, listen, even though I beat you, Darby Allin, you tried to... You tried to burn me. You tried to put me in the grave. So as opposed to me ringing the police or, suing you, we'll just have another wrestling match instead. And I think surely this has to end in an Inferno match. Now, Inferno matches haven't ever really worked in professional wrestling, but what else are they going to do? And they've pretty much done everything. When we did get to our main event, which was Hangman Adam Page versus Carl Fletcher, and yes, I'm going to be that guy, you have to forgive me, I am going to give this just a little bit of a down, just because I feel like it went too long. And I had no problem with them going long because they are such great wrestlers, but this should not be a one and done. We should build in more matches down the line. I think when you do that, you just want to extend it, and the first one can be 15 minutes for obvious reasons. I'm just wildly speculating here, but I think they did go 35 minutes or so because, of course, All Out wanted to bleed into WrestlePalooza, which we're also going to review. You may have already seen it on the channel, and you do have to do that from a business point of view, but from a fan's perspective, I just think less would have been more here and just tease. I am going to give that a down, but at the same time, in terms of ensuring Carl Fletcher arrived on the big time as a main event player, this was flubbing damn great. And as for Hangman Adam Page, what a wonderful babyface. I did actually have an issue with the tables here as well, just because we had seen so many tables, although it was totally justified on this one, because Carl Fletcher kept going, I'm going to brainbuster you through that thing, much like I did on Dynamite, and much like I did to your friend Kenny Omega. Now, eventually Hangman was able to reverse this, and he hit this mad deadeye through the table instead. And while this is nothing new, I don't get why that's not a disqualification. Like, surely Carl Fletcher can walk out and say, Hangman, you put a bunch of mad stipulations in that contract, but then it was you that used the wood. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a down as well. Now, I could be wrong here. Please do correct me in the comments. But I just think if you are having a mano singles championship match, and as Hangman said to Carl, if you get DQ'd, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and you do something that could be a disqualification, well, it just blurs the line. Or I'm being an old man idiot. Some of the near falls they pulled off from an execution level were perfect as well, but once again, especially because we've seen the Kris Statlander surprise, I don't think anybody believed that Carl Fletcher was going to do it here, but he was just wrecking Hangman with these brain busters, and the one he did through Timmy the Timekeeper's cable, well, if you had done that as a finish, everybody would have bought it. At 1.2, Page actually hit a V trigger as tribute to Kenny Omega, and even went for the one-winged angel. That's when Carl Fletcher just came back again. I do want to applaud Carl for how slow-paced he was at the start of this, or should I say his controlled pace. Like, he took his time. I don't want to say like he looked like a new age Randy Orton because people will get mad, but I made sure to keep an eye on him given this was his first big main event. The dude is ready to go, and he's only going to get better and better, and he's absolutely massive. I thought he did a terrific job. Justin Roberts also kind of teased this was going to go the hour because he said, by the way, guys, 30 minutes have passed and we've got 30 minutes left to go. And then this ties into my earlier down because Carl Fletcher just removed the turnbuckle and was like, ref, I'm going to throw his head into the steel. I mean, I guess if that's the rules, that's the rules. At 1.2, they were on the top rope, and Hangman Adam Page hit this avalanche dead high that looked absolutely terrifying, especially the way he landed on his knees. And at 1.2, he went for the buckshot lariat, and Carl Fletcher just collapsed, meaning Hangman wasn't able to hit it when he fought his way back in. Finally, did hit the buckshot lariat, and he got the 1, 2, 3. This is why Hanger is my man. He kicked out 2 brainbusters here, which annoyed me just a little bit, because it is Carl Fletcher's finisher, but when he hits his end move, there's the key word, it is the end. And either way, he is your champion. Now, he did whisper something to Carl Fletcher here. You'd have to imagine it's something along the lines of, I told you this would happen, but don't worry, bro, you are going to be okay. But I do have to give it an up. Again, I think there were a few things that we could have fixed here. But Hangman Adam Page continues to be a brilliant champion. And Carl Fletcher, my gosh, the potential in that dude's boots. I just say it again, I thought he smashed it. Which brought us to the end of AEW All Out 2025, and yes, I would have shaved a few minutes off it, but there were other things going on here. But actually what I do know is in the arena, I thought it sped on by, and every match, at least for me, totally delivered up. And yes, I know it wasn't quite the shebang of other pay-per-views, but you cannot expect that from every single one. It's not realistic. But now you can let me know in the comments below. You can like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And you can click the video on the screen, which will probably be WrestlePalooza, or the other way around. I don't know. Again, it's so early, and I've had to watch a lot of wrestling today. But what a blessed boy I am. See you soon.